We'll just give it 1 or 2 minutes just to get everyone in the room, and we'll start today's session. Just give it till 1 minute past and then we'll begin. Perfect. Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to Crossriver Partnership's first LiveShare session during Bike Week. I hope you're all keeping very well. This is our first LiveShare session in the series, which will discuss your latest active travel options in London on emergence from the current COVID crisis and lockdown. My name is Thomas Joyce. I work here at Crossriver Partnership, and over the next hour or so, we'll be walking you through all the various active travel options available to you. Before we make a start, I would like to mention that this live share session is being recorded and will be available to view online. We can signpost you to the link for this at the end of the session. So during today's active travel journey, we'll be joined by various speakers from across the industry. Today's speakers include Lucy Atkinson, a Senior Project Officer at Sustrans, Susanna Wilkes, Director of Crossriver Partnership, Safina Otaru, a Project Manager at CRP, myself, also CRP, and we'll also be joined by Laura Jacqueline, a Senior Project Officer at CRP, who will be monitoring the chat facility to the left of your screens, and also Joshua West, who will be working on our behind-the-scenes tech support. So during today's live share session, we'll firstly provide you with a brief introduction to CRP, followed by information from TfL regarding their COVID response efforts. We'll then be joined by Lucy Atkinson from Sustrans, who will give us an overview of some of the work they're conducting regarding COVID response and also the active travel realm. And last but not least, Safina Otaru, who will talk about one of CRP's active travel apps, the Clean Air Walking Route. During the live session, there'll be a chance for you to have your say via a Q&A session after each presentation. As I've mentioned, Laura will be moderating the chat, so please do ask your questions in there on the left-hand side and stating your name and where you're from. We'll try our very best to answer all your questions, but if we're unable to due to time constraints, please do contact us via email, and our email addresses will be displayed at the very end of this session. So before we go ahead and start, we'd just like to quickly bring up a poll just to kind of have an idea of how confident everyone is as a cyclist in London. So just give it a few seconds for that to pop up on the screen. Here we go. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least and 5 being the most, how confident do you feel cycling in London? Hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be a lot more confident knowing about all the various changes going on, as well as some of the applications out there that will help make cycling and walking easier. So it's quite a mixed bag of results. So hopefully you'll all find this very useful as we move through. Perfect. So let's just pop back to the presentation. And without further ado, let's make a start. So I'd like to now pass you over to Susanna Wilkes, who will provide a brief introduction to Crossriver Partnership. Susanna.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Hello, everyone. A really big welcome to all of you. We're very pleased to be with you. Crossriver Partnership was formed 26 years ago to build the Millennium Bridge across the River Thames. By now, we're helping with delivering London's future together with all sorts of government, business and community partners. CRP would like to thank its major funders for making this live share session possible, Central Government Department DEFRA, plus the Mayor of London and his agency Transport for London. CRP is delivering a wide range of projects. One, Clean Air Villages, is supporting businesses to keep London's air clean as we emerge from lockdown. Another, Healthy Streets Every Day is working across 17 of London's boroughs to reimagine how we all use London streets. So CRP's vision is to empower people to deliver innovative projects that support places to survive and thrive. Cross River Partnership is always following Lucy Saunders' 10 Healthy Streets principles in all of its project activities. These 10 principles are fully relevant now as we all facilitate a safe, healthy and orderly restarting of the economy as part of a recovery that is green in every sense of the word. So, CRP is working closely with Transport for London, the boroughs and business improvement districts to redesign London's streets so that physical distancing is possible and so that more travelling from A to B, indeed more living, can take place outdoors. We are balancing all of the different needs in a coordinated fashion. The walkers, the cyclists, the shoppers, the diners, the sustainable delivery companies. We are setting up intelligent monitoring systems so that we are capturing the impacts of all these street space measures. And we are sharing our results so that others may learn from our experiences. We have a dedicated COVID-19 response page with guidance, documents, etc. on CRP's website. It now gives me very great pleasure to introduce information from Transport for London on keeping London moving, getting from A to B.
Great, thank you very much, Susanna. So I was hoping I could pass you on to Andrew Hatch from TfL for this particular presentation, but due to TfL's current situation, unfortunately Andrew is unable to be with us today, although he has kindly provided us with some slides, which I'll go ahead and present on his behalf. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of this session, and I'll try my very best to answer them. Although if I'm unable to, we will pass these on to Andrew's team at TfL. So firstly, we'd like to start with some of the current safety measures that are being put in place on the current transport network, as we are aware that not everyone can active travel. Given the current COVID-19 crisis, TfL have had to adapt their existing transport network to accommodate for the government's physical distancing protocol requirements. TfL are now operating stations differently, implementing a number of new restrictions. This includes the implementation of now one-way systems at many stations, as well as restricting access to some station entrances to help enable physical distancing. These are on your screen. So these are some of the new signage that you might see whilst you're traveling. These signs will be deployed around TfL's network, stations and platforms, reminding passengers what to do. This includes reminding passengers to wear face coverings when travelling, which will now become mandatory from the 15th of June. In addition to this, travellers are reminded to wash their hands before and after each journey, maintain social distancing wherever possible, and travel at off-peak times to allow more space. In addition to visual reminders, TfL have introduced an enhanced cleaning regime to ensure the safety of those using the transport network. This includes using hospital-grade cleaning substances that clean viruses and bacteria on contact, new antiviral disinfectant that protects for up to 30 days, frequent cleaning of key interchanges throughout the day, and all touch point locations on buses being wiped down with strong disinfectant every day also. In addition to this, TfL have started to install hundreds of hand sanitizer points across the transport network, and these will soon be installed at every tube and TfL rail station. They will also be installed at various other transport network hubs such as bus stations, the London Overground and many others. With public transport only capable of working at 15% its pre-COVID capacity, it has been recognised that a new strategy is needed. An answer to this problem is TfL's London Streetspace Programme. TfL are working with boroughs to identify places where temporary changes are needed to support physical distancing or areas that will benefit from walking and cycling improvements. To encourage walking and cycling wherever possible, TfL are concentrating on 3 key areas. The first is quickly building a strategic cycling network using temporary materials and including new routes to help reduce crowding on the on trains and on busy bus routes. The second is changing town centres so local journeys can be safely walked and cycled wherever possible. For example, implementing wider pavements on high streets to give space for queues outside of shops, allowing others to walk past safely. And the third is reducing traffic on residential streets, creating low traffic corridors right across London so many more people can walk and cycle as part of their daily routine. This map shows areas of London where physical distancing is and isn't possible, highlighting areas where there may be a need to implement particular measures such as pavement widening or new cycle routes. This particular map, available on TfL's website, and Laura can send the link to this in the chat, shows areas where new cycle lanes are going to be deployed as part of the Streetspace Programme. These are shown in purple. The map also shows existing cycle routes in green and the London Tube network. From the map, it is visible to see that many new cycle routes either mirror or extend the existing transport infrastructure, with key arterial routes moving from outer to inner London. In total, there will be an additional 30 kilometres of permanent cycle lanes added to the existing 160-kilometre cycleway network during the summer of 2020. To accommodate for this increase in cyclists, TfL will be implementing an initial 1,000 extra cycle parking spaces across London, focused around busy areas like high streets and transport hubs. There will also be more Santander bicycles available at key areas. In addition to these physical changes, there will be many more car-free zones across London, giving central London some of the largest car-free zones in any capital city in the world. Some streets may be switched to walking and cycling only, while others may be limited to walking, cycling and buses. This is now planned for streets between London Bridge and Shoreditch, Euston and Waterloo, Blackfriars and King's Cross, and also Old Street and Holborn. Some plans also include pedestrianising Waterloo Bridge and London Bridge, restricting traffic to buses only, with pavements widened so people can safely walk and travel between busy railway stations and their workplaces. TfL have released a few tools to help you get about more easily on emergence from lockdown, and these include a digital cycle map, a walking tube map, which includes journey times, and also a document which details the number of steps between stations. Laura can also send these links in the chat. So to summarise, the Streetspace Programme is being rolled out at pace across London, enabling more active travel. Measures are being put in place at pace to enable social distancing across the network. For more information, please do visit TfL's website at tfl.gov.uk or search TfL coronavirus on Google. I'll try my very best to answer any questions, although if I'm unable to, I'll pass them on to TfL's Communities and Partnerships team. If you'd also like any high-resolution copies of the posters which were presented during this presentation, please do let me know and I can get you in contact with the relevant persons. So before we do go over to the questions, I would like to briefly mention CRP's Healthy Streets Everyday programme, which is working on similar work streams to TfL's Streetspace programme. The programme focuses on 3 key work streams. These include streetscape improvements, which will include parklets, cycle and walking routes and greening infrastructure. The second work stream is new traffic regulations, which include school streets and play streets. And the third work stream is looking at car-free behaviour, so such as cycle skills, increasing those skills in the community, and also journey planning. CRP is helping TfL's Streetspace programme by bringing extra features to the immediate street level interventions to ensure they become permanent after this COVID crisis. This includes working with boroughs to help them implement school streets, modal filters and parklets, of course ensuring physical distancing is maintained in any parklets installed. And in addition to this, the HSE programme is looking at adding further features to harder physical interventions, such as greening to cycle lanes to make them more visually appealing. So I hope you found this useful, and I'd now like to welcome any questions. So I'll have a quick look in the chat and see what we've got from the audience. So Tim Ward from Six Star Global previously worked at CRP at LeasePlan UK. Has a question on bike travel from those London boroughs outside of the current bike hire scheme areas. So let's have a look. We are encouraging cycling and walking, and many private bike schemes not currently available. Is there any capacity to increase the bike hire scheme? In addition, traffic pollution is likely to increase as many take to the roads to avoid public transport. Where do TfL believe pollution levels will be worse affected? So that is a very good question, and obviously I can't answer on behalf of TfL, so we can pass that on to TfL to for them to answer properly for you. But I think particularly for looking at the pollution levels, on emerging from this current crisis and also looking at the potential increase in private car use, there might be an increase in those pollution levels towards central London, with more people taking journeys in private vehicles. But obviously, with what's going on with the Streetspace Programme, we are hoping to have this changed and make it easier to cycle from outer to inner London, as shown on that map. Santander bike stands are becoming more available throughout the city, with 40 new stations being installed at key areas for you to be able to use bikes if you potentially don't have access to them. So yes, but for anything that I couldn't answer there, I will send that on to TfL and we'll be able to get you a comprehensive answer for that. We then do have another question from John Carmichael from Angel London, so the Business Improvement District. So this is a comment and question combined. For information on the Thames Clippers are restarting their service from the 15th of June and apparently going to increase space for bikes on their vessels. Well, that's brilliant to hear, given everything that's already going on in London and all the work that's being put in place to increase cycling. So to be able to travel on other modes of transport and also take your bikes with you is something that will be very useful indeed. Yes, and we'll also then just go for another question from the audience. So has any discussion or lobbying taken place to encourage more use of the river moving forward? So again, this isn't a question that I'd be able to directly ask for TfL, but I do think that yes, the river could be utilised more, and there could be room to be using it in a way that will effectively allow people to travel around, particularly central London. And as John previously said, that the vessels are now allowing you to use take your bikes on board from the 15th of June. This is something that could be very useful indeed to allow you to move around central London. So we'll just take one more question then from the chat, and that last question is there any opportunity for artists to brighten up any of the newly proposed routes? That is a brilliant suggestion, and I think that should be something that we should all be doing, is looking to really make these particular interventions visually appealing. So that is something that we can then hopefully enjoy after this crisis is over, and something that will be lasting and worthwhile for us all to make a shift then to active travel in the long term. Perfect. So we'll now move on to the next talk. And the next presentation will be all about building your confidence to cycle and walk in London. I'd now like to pass you over to Lucy Atkinson of Sustrans, who works on the Healthy Streets Officer Programme, which is closely aligned to and has similar work streams to CRP's Healthy Streets Everyday Programme. Lucy.
Thanks, Thomas, and to Cross River Partnership for inviting me along today. So hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Lucy from the walking and cycling charity, Sustrans. So this is our mission statement. I think to some it might sound a bit niche, but for us, mobility is at the crossroads of public health, social justice, and environmental issues, and is more important now than ever. So at Sustrans, our focus is on participation and inclusion, reaching the widest possible audience and doing work that makes a difference on a street level. So we work in partnership with local authorities, TfL, business and community partners. So the benefits of walking and cycling are numerous. So you can see some of them here. It's recommended that adults take part in 2.5 hours of moderate activity a week. At the moment, only 40% of men and 30% of women do this. So this graphic shows only some of the benefits, and we're working with our partners to support people across the city to feel confident in making their journeys active and helping to get some of these benefits. So these are the key journeys that we focus on, everyday trips that all Londoners make. It's really important for us with the risk of mode shift towards private cars due to COVID and like the aforementioned kind of decrease in capacity on public transport. So yeah, it's really important for us that we're supporting people in making journeys sustainably. And I think, yeah, for us, it's these local journeys that are so important. And we try and focus on journeys within neighbourhoods as well as the more conventional kind of radial routes straight into the city. So our work with local authorities. So we work in every London borough. Through the Healthy Streets Officers Programme, we do this, which is what I work on. We have 4 main work streams for this, which are Streetspace, so helping to support around the implementation, monitoring and engagement of temporary measures, work with workplaces and school streets. So we're doing a lot of work with authorities and with schools in how to get sort of traffic closures outside of places of education. And also in cycle training. So Sustrans' wider team supports local authorities as well. So with infrastructure design, with collaborative design, and with guidance and support. At the moment, we're doing some support for local authorities as well with applications for street space and Department of Transport bids. So we're focused on inclusivity, so on engaging with diverse communities, to make the to affect the built environment and kind of make the city just a more livable place for everyone and make those journeys easier to make sustainably. So here are a few case studies. So the Space to Move tool has been developed by our research and monitoring team. It's free of charge and it's for local authorities. And so using this, we can support councils to engage community in temporary traffic calming measures. So people, this picture, you can see we've plotted loads of different of the interventions, and once they're there, people can put in their feedback, and then we kind of can collate all of this information and send it back to local authorities free of charge. So this is a way to respond to measures that are already in place, rather than some tools which tend to be for requests for new interventions, and so this helps kind of encourage real-time modifications. The next case study. So last month, a Healthy Streets officer arranged a purchase of a cargo bike for King's Church, which is a community meal service in Lewisham, so that deliveries can be made to housebound vulnerable people like Iris on the right, in a sustainable way. So this was part funded by Lewisham Council and was also enabled by our partnership with the Cross River Partnership, which is great. So it's a really good example of partnership working that we are doing, and kind of helping to make deliveries, which obviously are becoming, there's an increased demand for deliveries, and helping to make deliveries more sustainable in London. This case study is from an example of route planning that the Sustrans behaviour change team did for the NHS Nightingale Hospital, which is funded through the Healthy Streets Officers Programme. So the hospital was a new workplace for hundreds of NHS workers, and was supported by plotting quiet routes to the hospital, which you can see in red. So we're able to provide this kind of service for businesses and business improvement districts. And this was part of the Sustrans' national Cycles for Key Workers campaign, which I think a link is going to get shared to you in the chat, which was launched right after lockdown to support people who needed to make those essential journeys to work in a sustainable way. We also were able to provide equipment for key workers in London. So here is a quick thing about cycle training. So Sustrans sometimes delivers this in-house with our community partners. But yeah, through our Healthy Streets programme, we work closely with cycle training providers, tongue twister, in every borough, so who deliver sessions for all levels of experience, usually free of charge. So this helps developing confidence on the road, and is kind of a key part of what we look to do, to kind of make sure that everybody has equal kind of levels of confidence and feels ready to use that temporary infrastructure once it goes in. So yeah, we provide some more general guidance on how to get back into cycling or how to start cycling. So here's an example of kind of tips that we would give. And we have free resources on our blog and published in the media and shared through our partners like TfL and boroughs communications teams. So yeah, just a quick roundup of what it is that we do. And yeah, just wanted to encourage everybody, if you have any questions or would like to hear more and just to get in touch, my email address will be shared with all attendees after this session. So yeah, please do get in touch. So yeah, that's all from me. And so any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Lucy. Yes, we've got a few questions asked. So we'll start off with SDJ, who's asked a question about, so does security of and cover for cycling storage in denser urban areas? So does the security of and cover for cycle storage areas in densely populated, apologies, my chat is a little bit. So should it be down to building developers and operators to provide facilities, or should local authorities provide bike garages?
That is a good question. I think, because obviously cycle safety is really important, and it's definitely one of the barriers to cycling that a lot of people have is around storage, and the perception that their bike might get stolen. So I think secure cycle storage is really important. We work with local authorities around that. A lot of local authorities at the moment, those bids that are going in for Streetspace also include bike hangers and secure parking. I think that's really important, that we don't forget that that's an important thing that we're going to need with a boom in cycling. In terms of whether local authorities should provide the garages or private building developers, I think the answer is probably a mixture of both. I think if we can get as many different partners that we can get providing access to cycle storage, the better.
Definitely agree with that. Perfect. We do have another question. So this one is from Patricia Bench at Hammersmith Bid. So do you have funding or training as, I assume for cycling, as London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham's funding has been withdrawn? Do you provide anything like this, training or funding for training at Sustrans?
So typically, through the Healthy Streets Officers programme, we work on cycle training with the boroughs, though that funding does come from TfL. I know that a lot of the cycle training funding has been paused at the moment, but TfL are, working hard to kind of confirm exactly what funding is going to be available, and rest assured they know that it's more important now than it ever has been before. So I'm hopeful that there'll be a good allocation towards cycle training in every borough, and yeah, we're keen to work with as many boroughs as we can to make sure that that is made available to organisations and community partners who need it the most.
Definitely, thank you. And there's another question then from Jack from Team London Bridge. Is kind of a similar question in a way. So do you know of any online bikeability training for new cyclists? Is there anything available currently online that anyone will be able to kind of log on to and just get a better sense of, you know, building their confidence to cycle and training in that way? Do you know of anything?
Yeah, so actually at Sustrans, I think one of the blogs or one of the links that's going to be shared in the chat, we have loads of tips and guidance for people who are thinking about getting started cycling or getting back onto their bikes. I would also say that cycle training is coming back in a socially distanced way. So in some boroughs, cycle training is being delivered again. I know that yesterday in Tower Hamlets, there was a bikeability session that happened a cycle training session. I can't remember who the provider was, and that took place in Victoria Park. So I think a mixture of online and also in person. I think, if we share the link for the Sustrans tips and guidance, and if there's any more, I can ask my colleagues, and if there's any further resources that they think would be helpful for you, I will make sure that they get sent after this webinar finishes.
Amazing, great to hear. Thanks, Lucy. We'll just go for one more question then, just to do with some of the stuff that you've mentioned. So how does the Sustrans Space to Move tool tie in with the new commonplace web pages that boroughs are setting up? Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so the Sustrans Space to Move tool is a bit different from a lot of those because everything is together in one place. It's a really good tool for because it's also national, and so it plots all of these interventions. It can be quite helpful as a way to see what's happening in one area compared to another, and a really good way to build a case for support or a case for more interventions. So in specific areas, and we can see where those are missing, as well as where they're really present. It's also quite kind of in real time, I guess. So it's really helpful. Some boroughs we've kind of gotten feedback that it's really helpful in that we kind of get responses on interventions that are already in place, which helps to kind of modify them over time to make sure that they're working as effectively as possible. But yeah, so I see them as a very good complementary tools.
Amazing. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move over to Safina Otaru, project manager here at Cross River Partnership, and she'll be giving us an update to one of CRP's applications, the Clean Air Route Finder. Safina.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Hello, everyone. I'm Safinat, and I'll be talking to you today about the Clean Air Route Finder. So far, we've discussed active travel, its benefits, and how changes are being made to our open spaces to make them more accessible to you. We've heard about how TfL is working with London boroughs and the City of London Corporation, changing town centres, building new cycleways. The plan is to have roughly 450 kilometres of cycleways, formerly known as superhighways and quietways, by 2024 for Londoners to use. Additionally, there are low traffic neighborhoods that are planned across central London. Some streets are being converted to walking and cycling only, while others will be restricted to all traffic apart from buses. Additionally, there are plans for more Santander cycles to be available for Londoners to use. Polls, including one recently released by the Centre for London, indicate that the majority of the majority of Londoners support the changes that are being made. So what happens when, we're finally ready to get out there? Right now, there are concerns about car traffic, about maintaining physical distancing, or just simply getting from point A to B. And the tool, Clean Air Route Finder, is a great place to start. The Clean Air Route Finder provides users with options to get to their destination, either walking or cycling. The website is configured for mobile devices, so you can use it on your phones while you're out and about. The routes presented show the users' exposure to air pollution around them, as well as their travel time. We developed the website in partnership with King's College London, using the London Air Quality Network to calculate the emissions along the routes, and that information is updated hourly. When you first load the Clean Air Route Finder website, the colored paths that you see on your screen are displayed by default. They are clean air walking routes that we developed in cooperation with our partners and King's College. And what they do is they connect key destinations in specific areas that provide users with a healthier, more pleasant walk than the usual route would normally provide. And for more information about any of those routes, you simply click on it and that little text box that you see pops up. But how do you get to the Clean Air Route Finder in the first place? Go to your browser, enter cleanairroutes.london, select your starting point and your destination, and then select whether you will be walking or cycling. Once you make that selection, up to 3 routes are generated. And in the example that you see on the screen, we have 3 routes, and they are graded by how clean they are, i.e. how much exposure is on each one. The average, what you see is the average along each route, and then it's up to the user to decide what works best for them. So that's it really, but let's see it in action. If you don't have any sound, you should see an unmute button in the top left corner of the presentation on your screen. Click that and you'll get your sound. The video was made with pedestrians in mind. Typically though, as you can see in the video, whether cycling or walking, these routes are usually along quieter paths than busier main roads. Great. So yeah, that's our little video that basically shows what it can be like using, or rather moving through the city using the Clean Air Route Finder. Fortunately, moving around London, especially within zones 1 and 2, is feasible and can often be a pleasant experience. In the past, we've released a report called the Walking Tube Report, which has highlighted this. I believe that we will be sharing a link in the chat to the report if anyone is interested in reading it. As stations reopen, you can reduce the amount of time you spend on the tube by getting off a stop or two before your final destination and walking or cycling the rest of the way. Again, the Clean Air Route Finder will show you your options. For those of you who rely on the National Rail to get into London, the Clean Air Route Finder is useful for exploring both getting to your local station as well as getting into a central London terminus such as Victoria or Paddington. Also, with London's River bus service back in operation next Monday, June 15th, some of the Thames Clippers will be increasing their bike capacity. So for those of you who are looking to combine that with combine traveling along the river with cycling, that's an option too. For us, really, the next stage is really to work on improving the Clean Air Route Finder. So we're planning to update it with showing key connections across central London, your exposures along the routes as you travel on those routes rather than the average exposure over the entire length. We're looking at creating sort of travel times to central London's railway termini, showing it in timed increments, just to give you an idea as to whether or not it's possible for you to walk or cycle to those locations, as well as including regularly updated cycleways. And so the plan is to release these updates in phases beginning next week, and hopefully support you to move around the city in a safe and convenient way. And that's it, really. Thank you. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Safinat. So we do have a few questions from the audience. The first is from Susie Barlow, who said it would be great if the Clean Air Route Finder tool worked in conjunction with Google Maps or other navigation apps. Is this being explored?
Well, the Clean Air Route Finder is actually based on Google Maps, but we're always looking for ways to improve its functionality.
Great. Maybe another question then. So how can we ensure that the Clean Air Route Finder tool doesn't direct footfall away from shops? So for example, the high street, particularly given the current situation and needing to really boost business?
What we find is that normally when people are looking at using a navigational tool, they tend to have a destination in mind, and usually by a certain time. So if they aren't going to the shops, they aren't going to the shops, they're going to their destination. Likewise, those people who are looking to window shop or do actual shopping will continue to find their way to those areas, be they high streets or shopping districts.
Perfect. So it's very much knowing the destination you want to get to, and then if that's going to be going to the shops, then you know that's going to be your final destination, but the route, for example, could be a different way of taking it.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, then, so we've got another question, I believe Simon from London Cycling. So this is a question, so isn't there a risk that this approach just encourages us not to deal with the bigger issue here, the poor air quality from too much motor traffic?
That's a good question. I think I believe that when people do realize that there are pleasant ways of getting around the city, it actually encourages them to get out there and walk and cycle more, and also influence their social spheres, their family, their friends to do the same. And so the idea then becomes that people are less reliant on private transport as they realize how easy active travel is, and so basically what you're left with is public transport, which is there for the people who really need it. I also think that the push then for more accessible active travel ways is also increased. So I think that this is a tool that could indirectly encourage the use of active travel to get around, as well as pressure on the powers that be to make even more of such spaces available.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of, in a way, ingraining some behavior change in people, suggesting different routes for them to take, and something that's potentially not, you're not walking along the same, maybe very polluted route every day, and it's really encouraging you to kind of move away from that. And hopefully, if that can be instilled within other people who potentially want to take the car, instead of walking, this could be a really good way around promoting that.
Exactly, and in fact, it was one of the original aims when we first came up with this tool, to encourage exploring your neighborhood and take a path you hadn't seen before, and hopefully discover something new that you hadn't seen before.
Exactly. With all these changes that are currently underway, it would be really interesting to see how everyone's neighborhoods are changing. And yeah, definitely. Perfect. So we'll just have one more question then, Safina, because I do know that you briefly mentioned it during the slides. So when will the updated version be available again? Would you just be able to remind me? Or
Sure. So we plan to do this in phases, with the first set of changes going live sometime next week. We haven't yet fixed the date, but as we make those changes, we'll be making announcements on our website and also via our newsletter. Otherwise, keep checking the site, and just watch that space.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Safina.
You're welcome.
Great. So before we end today's session then, we'd just like to mention that our next LiveShare session will be held on Thursday, the 2nd of July. This will be during Green Transport Week. More details about the session will be released in due course, along with an Eventbrite invitation. So as Safina said, do watch this space. Please do also sign up to our newsletter, and this will provide you with updates for all our future LiveShare sessions. So before we depart, just like to say thank you to all of you who have joined us today, to all of our speakers also. We'd love, like I've mentioned, to keep up to date with everything CRP. Please do sign in to our newsletter, which is at the bottom. Also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. And also all of our live sessions will be on Cross River Partnership on YouTube. So before we do finish, we'd just like to do one final poll for you all, just to kind of see how you found it, and whether any of the proposed changes that you're now aware of in London, how will this make you more inclined to walk and cycle more often? Well, brilliant. I think there's a clear winner here. Yes, a very exciting time in terms of active travel in London, and there are a lot of changes going ahead, which will hopefully make you want to take the bike or walk a little more often and ditch the car. So perfect. If you do have any questions, do direct them to the email addresses below. We've also got a copy of all your questions, so we will get answers to you in due course. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay safe.